Right, good evening everybody and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Committee. I'd like to welcome all the councillors and all the members of the public that are here this evening. The toilets are just out there, and if you hear the fire alarm then you need to leave the building the way you came in. I'd just like to introduce the people beside me. I'm Lucy Peacock, I'm the co-vice chair of the committee, but I'm chairing the meeting this evening. To my right is Gina Huffan and Chris Dale, the planning officers. To my left is Kerry France, the monitoring officer, and John Ramsey, the Democratic Services team leader. Okay, let's start the meeting. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor David Burton and Councillor Roger Shelley as their substitute. We've had apologies from Councillor Sue Burfoot and Councillor Joanne Linthwaite is their substitute. We've also had apologies from Councillor Laura Melstrom and Councillor Neil Buttle is their substitute.
Thank you. So item 2, approval of minutes of previous meeting. You've all had a chance to have a look at the minutes. I believe we have a question about it from Peter Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. As you are aware, and some others are aware, we have had some concern from a member of the public over the accuracy of the minutes from the meeting in August. I wonder if we could have an update as to what the status is of a response to that person. And then I've got 1 or 2 points, minor corrections that I'd like to make to the minutes as recorded.
So we're in the process of formulating a response that will be sent either from Councillor Burton or myself at some point in the next few days. Do you want to summarise what the response was? Or?
Yeah, through you, Chair. It's just to give members just a little bit of an idea of what forms legal, the legal record. So just to clarify for members, the minutes are the Council's formal legal record. They are required to show the business considered, any motions that were moved, seconded and voted upon, any decisions that are made and any procedural points such as attendance and declarations of interest. They're not intended to be a record of individual contributions. Full transparency is provided through the live stream and the YouTube recording, but the signed minutes remain the conclusive legal record of proceedings.
So your other points then, Councillor Dobbs?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of minor ones that were mentioned by the resident. That is, in my statement that I read out, there was indeed a mention of Rule 6 parties. I did actually handwrite it in to my typed statement, so it should read, and others of the Rule 6 parties. That's in the penultimate line of the first paragraph. And then there's because of this, I would like to suggest a workshop or similar opportunity. I believe the minutes say of, rather minor point, but they were raised by the resident. So if those could be included, I'm happy to move the minutes as an accurate record within the scope of what we normally do of that meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second those. I think, again, within the spirit of the way in which we take minutes, I will second that.
All in favour? Any against? And abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Right, item 3, interests. Does anybody have any interests they would like to disclose? Nope, okay. In that case, we'll move on to applications for determination. So item 5.1, which is a plot at Harrison Way in Ashbourne. We have a speaker for this, I believe. Do we have Mr Hicks, the agent? If you'd like to take your seat, you have 5 minutes.
Is that live? No, sounds like it is. No, it's red. Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Planning Committee. My name is James Hicks. If you heard, I'm Director of Pegasus Group. I'm a Chartered Town Planner and I act as agent for this application. This is a reserved matter application and represents the first phase of the delivery of the commercial development at Ashbourne Airfield. This is development within phase 1. This application seeks permission for a length of road to serve a building that's built for an existing business based on Blenheim Way in Ashbourne. The building has been designed to meet the needs of the occupier and allow them to grow, but more importantly to remain in Ashbourne. The section of the road will provide the access infrastructure to further phases of commercial development at the airfield. So we've got a section of road on one building here in this scheme. Your officers did ask us to amend this scheme, in particular amend the elevations of the building. Whilst not, in our opinion, strictly justified in planning terms, we are satisfied that we made a recommendation to our client to make those changes and the elevations of the building were adjusted slightly in line with conversations with your officers. The scheme, in simple terms, represents the next generation of employment building provision in Ashbourne and in the district. It provides a significant provision of environmental improvements through arrays of photovoltaic panels to the roof and also EV chargers within the public car parking areas. The application conforms to the requirements of the Outline Planning Permission, hence it's a reserved matter, and it's not been subject to any objection from any consultee, statutory consultee or otherwise. On that basis, I'm very pleased to see that it's recommended for approval. If I'm permitted to do so, I'm happy to take any questions, but if that's not permissible, that's fine. But thank you for your time and allowing me to speak in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hicks. So to introduce the application, Chris Dale.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for approval of reserved matters for the erection of one industrial unit, formation of access road, associated access infrastructure, landscaping and car parking at plot 36 Harrison Way, Ashbourne. The hybrid application granted outline planning permission in August 2020 was for 367 dwellings and up to 10 hectares of employment, and full planning permission for one industrial unit, which is plot 5, and access from the A52 and Link Road. The reserved matters for which approval is sought tonight are access, appearance, layout, scale and landscaping. The application site comprises a 0.4 hectare land parcel known as plot 36, which is situated to the northeast of the Link Road. The site falls within the Ashbourne settlement boundary as defined by policy S2 of the local plan. This slide shows the plot in the context of neighbouring plots. The site is situated within Ashbourne Airfield development site, which is allocated for a mixed-use development of 367 dwellings and 8 hectares of employment land. This is the proposed site layout. Access would be via new access road to the west, and to the frontage of the site would be parking for 22 cars. Beyond this, along the side of the building is a secure servicing and car storage area. Landscaping is proposed along the site frontage and part of the southern boundary adjacent to the car parking spaces. On the upper part of the image here, you can see the proposed east elevation of the building, and on the lower image, the proposed north elevation. And on this slide, the proposed west elevation is the upper image, which shows the main entrance to the building, and the southern elevation showing access for vehicles for loading and unloading, I presume, is on the on the bottom slide image. This is the proposed first floor showing a mezzanine, the proposed ground floor plan, proposed site layout again. The building would be 63 metres long and 26.6 metres wide. And the cross sections through the site show the slightly curved roof, which would be 10.5 metres high at the highest point. Finally, the proposed roof plan shows indicative photovoltaic panels in pink and roof lights in a pale colour. The principle of developing a commercial building at the site has been established by both the local plan allocation and the hybrid planning permission. Officers consider the submitted reserved matters of access, appearance, layout, scale and landscaping are acceptable for the reasons set out in the report, and the recommendation is for approval subject to conditions.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions. First of all, the report notes that to the east, on the against the east elevation, is that going to be residential? Is the land to the east residential, or is it further commercial development? And the second is about the third informative. If you perhaps it's completely different subjects, it might be worth taking that one first.
So there is, Chair, the site, the plot forms part of obviously the wider site, and there is an indicative master plan for the site, which indicates that there would be commercial uses in this part of the site, followed by residential further to the east. I'm just trying to see if there's a contextual plan here. Yes, so the piece of land directly to the east on the indicative master plan would be commercial uses, and then immediately to the east of that, so just off this plan, would be the residential. So there'd be an intervening commercial building.
Thank you. So the height of the building is to some extent, the effect of that is reduced because of the distance from the residential properties. Thank you. On the other subject, on the informative, I was just wondering, informative number 3, I was just wondering whether that was necessary, and whether there was a need for continuous. It talks about appointing a travel advisory manager who will monitor the way in which people get to work against the travel plan and report on an annual basis. And it struck me that that was perhaps more than necessary, and if we adopted that for every commercial development, we might find that poor planning officers are overwhelmed with work in reviewing those reports about travel. I would suggest that we don't need that informative. It seems going a step too far, perhaps, to ask for something which is open-ended like that.
Chair, if I'm permitted to answer that. It is actually a fairly standard requirement. I appreciate it does seem like there's a fairly substantial commitment there, but it is a fairly standard requirement. Now it's put on as an informative. My understanding is that's because the original hybrid consent has a condition to that effect. So in any way, it's covered by that in any case.
Councillor Buttle.
Thank you, Lucy. I gather Mr. Hicks may well have pointed this out, but the shapes of the plan in red are outlined, and then the position on the map above don't seem to have much in common. Is it actually in the same place, but it's got different boundaries? I want, unless I'm looking at the wrong one here, item 5.1. It is item 5.1, isn't it? And one's a diamond shape and one's square.
Chair, it's the first slide in the slide pack, and it is slightly strange. But I think that's just an error of perspective or something, but it is odd.
Yeah, not a square.
Through you, Chair. I take your point. Yes, it does seem slightly different. I'm not clear whether there's an issue with the way that image is oriented. But in any case, I can assure you that the images that you see on the screen are the correct ones.
So to be clear, that the one up there on the wall, not the one on my...
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm
Right,
sorry
okay,
for...
great.
for
No,
for
thank
the
you, because
confusion.
they didn't have much commonality. I do have a second question. I note the recommendation says delegated authority to the Director of Place and Economy to approve amendments to those conditions as deemed necessary. What is the point of the committee? Isn't that pretty much what we do?
Through you, Chair. The reality is that the conditions which are being recommended, I can't see any reason why they, if you were to approve the application tonight with those conditions, I can't see any reason why they would be any different when produced on the decision notice. I guess it does give scope, for example, if there was a typographical error, for that to be resolved. But other than that, I can't see any reason why they would come through differently to what the committee might approve tonight if they agree to the recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Nope, okay. Would somebody like to propose a motion? Councillor Lees.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we accept this as the officers written it, and it's nice to see that the development up there is on the commercial side is finally beginning to move. So we're happy to see it and happy to move the recommendations as written. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Dobbs, are you offering to second?
Happy to second and to echo the at last bit in the Stuart's comment.
Okay, so would anybody like to speak? No? Okay, we'll go straight to a vote then. All in favour? That appears to be unanimous. And yeah, I'll vote for it as well. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we're coming to item 5.2 on the agenda, which is land east of 21 Cavendish Drive. And that's going to be, there's no speakers for this one. It's going to be introduced by Chris Dale again, please.
Thank you, Chair. This proposal is for the erection of two-storey semi-detached dwelling houses at land east of 21 Cavendish Drive. The application site comprises a roughly rectangular parcel of land measuring approximately 0.06 hectares, located adjacent to 21 Cavendish Drive. The site currently comprises grassland, hedgerows and trees, and is an area of retained landscaping as part of the development currently under construction to the east. This slide shows the application site in its wider context. The site is located within the defined settlement boundary of Ashbourne on the southeastern side of the town. These are the proposed ground and first floor layouts of the buildings, a pair of semi-detached dwellings, and you can see the entrances at the front on the ground floor plan there to the left-hand side. These are the proposed elevations. The dwellings would be of brickwork exterior with grey roof tiles. And this site shows the proposed site layout. Parking for house 1 would be to the side of the dwelling, whilst parking for house 2 would be to the front. The dwellings would be accessed via a new access directly off Cavendish Drive. Whilst the site forms part of a wider site allocation for development under policy HTC2 of the local plan, the proposed development would result in the removal of trees and other vegetation from the site which are of biodiversity and landscape value and are considered important in providing a level of amenity for the existing residents of Cavendish Drive and for future residents of the new estate currently under construction. Consequently, officers are recommending refusal of planning permission for the reasons set out on page 38 of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No? Would anybody like to move? Councillor Buttle?
Happy to offer to support the officer recommendation, thank you.
Okay, and a seconder? Councillor Dobbs, you were first.
Happy to second. I reserve the right to come back in debate. Thank you.
Okay, so to clarify, the motion is the officer recommendations, which is to refuse the application. Would anybody like to speak? Councillor Dobbs, you said you were going to speak.
Yes, I think this is a good decision. I went to the site this morning and reminded myself what it looked like, and there is a valuable bit of hedge. You can't tell from our pack that the other bit of green has gone because there's quite a big estate being developed to the side, which is coming along nicely actually. But this would be a significant loss of an interesting hedge. And although I can see what the developer's trying to do and kind of mimic the pair of semis to the left, I think it will be a lot on a small space and a loss of a nice hedge, which does screen the rest of this new development from Cavendish Drive. So yes, I think the officer's recommendation to refuse is the right one. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments? Okay, all of those in favour of the recommendation, which is to refuse the application? And me. So that's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Right, in that case, we'll come to item 5.3, which is land south of Yew Tree Farm, Yew Tree Lane. And I believe we have two speakers for this. Michael Louth, please take your seat. So you have 3 minutes.
So, thank you for allowing me to speak to oppose the proposed erection of the dwelling on Yew Tree Lane. My name is Michael Louth and I live just north of the proposed site. Historically, the pasture land was given to Yew Tree Cottage some 80 years ago for a garden, as the cottage had no land to it and a small garden gate was the only access way in. The small plot was a very productive vegetable garden and has never been developed or had any buildings on it, only a 3-sided container recently placed there. Google Earth shows the site unused over many years. The applicant describes it as a small plot on a quiet country lane. It is a country lane measuring only 3.6 metres on the bend, with the average car measuring between 1.9 and 2 metres and a transit van measuring 2.5 metres. Careful passing or reversing often into my driveway, but it is not a quiet lane, with up to 60 farm vehicles, lorries, cars, delivery vans plus village children catching and returning for the school bus and pedestrian using it at busy times. Living next to this dangerous bend, I hear many bumps over the year. I see the skid marks and occasionally the odd wing mirror or glass. The last one was about 4 weeks ago, and just prior to that, a milk tanker collided with a villager's car, causing considerable damage. So inserting a new driveway on this dangerous bend would present a serious highway risk. Again, I have photos to prove my point. The land leading up to the bend has a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit on it. From the proposed driveway, the distance is several hundred metres in each direction, so cars and delivery vans can reach speeds up to 40 miles an hour. Plus this gives a braking distance of over 35 metres in the dry or over 50 in the wet, which takes you way past the bend. And people only tend to brake as they reach the corner, hence the minor bumps. The topography and narrowness of the lane at this point also makes access to and from the site very dangerous. I've included in my initial objection photos of cars trying to pass and getting stuck on the actual bend. My final comment is the access to and from the site. To be able to see clearly in both directions, the vehicle has to exit 2.5 metres before the driver can see. As the lane is only 3.65 metres wide, this gives just over 1 metre to start to turn, and the average turning path for a family car is 5.8 metres. In my previous objection letter, I photocopied an official turning path of cars. I've walked all around Bradley in the past 50 years and consider this to be one of the most dangerous bends.
Mr Louth, that's your 3 minutes now.
And there's no material changes have been made to the revised application, highways or landscapes, to mitigate these concerns. The decision made to refuse the application in 2023 should remain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next I have Mr George Dutton, the Chair of Bradley Parish Council. You also have 3 minutes.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee. I'm George Dutton, I'm Chairman of the Bradley Parish Council. You'll be aware that the Parish Council can't support this application, and during the parish meeting at which this application was under discussion, our councillors noted comments during the public speaking discussion period as follows. Highway safety concerns. Yew Tree Lane, as the previous speaker, it's only a single track road. At the location of this application, relatively high edges either side of the lane exist. Any delivery vehicle or saloon-sized car would by necessity require to manoeuvre on the lane to drive onto the site. A builder's pickup certainly would not be able to turn into the drive straight out. We currently have a please drive slowly sign on the Bradley access entrance. The site location and proposed access is the most notorious accident black spot in Bradley. Fears of parents with children walking daily to catch the Queggs bus from the bus stop at the top of Yew Tree Lane are always keen to drill into their children the dangers of this section of Yew Tree Lane. It truly is the #1 accident black spot of the parish. Mothers from the pasture settlement just along the Belper Road, whose children go to Bradley School, are equally fearful and vigilant when walking with their children to the primary school. The current sizes of agriculture tractors and implements always fill the road, and one of the latest accidents, as referred to, was a tractor being run into by a delivery van. Quite a serious accident, but one of many, many former ones. Hedgerows and trees. A local farmer who attended the meeting spoke out, pointing that they own the hedgerows along the rear of the site, which is the back of the container, also on the southern boundary of the property, and that goes to the southwest corner of the site, at which point is the gated access onto the land in question. The hedgerow from the south point and the south west corner along continuing down Yew Tree Lane towards the village, again is owned by that same farmer. All those hedgerows are part of a farm stewardship grant scheme, and none of those can be removed or will be removed. So it negates the possibility to give any compliant splays onto the site. Additionally, the stewardship scheme will not allow for these hedges to be removed. Are highways, I ask this, are highways aware of this? Because if they are, the comments in their assessment would be in conflict of the requirement for splays condition. Site level and drainage.
Mr Dutton, you've had your 3 minutes now. If you could just finish up very quickly.
Okay, yes. The effluent treatment, this again can't be properly dealt with on the site, and there's no external drainage. These are the concerns of the Bradley Parish Council. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll support the council in their objection to this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to both speakers. To introduce this application, we've got Gina Huffman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an application for outline or matters reserved for one dwelling. It's at the land south of Yew Tree Farm, Yew Tree Lane at Bradley. It's all matters reserved, so it's pretty basic in terms of, it's just the principle we're looking at. And it's quite, in terms of location, it is, I've gone by it, it is towards the entrance to Bradley Village. There is, the principle of it is basically one of the main considerations. In terms of Bradley Village itself, it's outside of a settlement. It's a fifth-tier village, so although there is some support for infill and consolidation plots, that would be, we'd be looking towards a built framework of Bradley Village, whereas this is very much a few properties. There's two properties, I believe, that started off as a farm, and then they separated slightly by an agricultural building, and then they want to have this as an infill plot. But in our view, it's not an infill plot. It's quite located away from the built framework of Bradley Village itself. In terms of what's already on site, it's never been developed previously. It has got a container on it at the moment, and it's also got some hedgerows around the site, which have been indicated by our tree officer as possibly being important hedgerows. So in theory of that, we would require more information to be able to understand what works might be required to that, and very limited information based on the fact its outline or matters reserved has been provided at this stage. But we would imagine that anything, in terms of highways, because it's all matters reserved, they've not really, they've just said in principle it might be all right, but you'd have to be able to provide the parking, turning and manoeuvring spaces and things on site. However, obviously that any of that would impact the hedgerow as well, which, although we don't know yet whether it's an important hedgerow, obviously in terms of landscaping, it has been there for a number of years. So I've put forward a recommendation for refusal based on the principle of development. We wouldn't consider it to be an infill and consolidation plot. We wouldn't consider it to be a sustainable location, and it's outside the built framework of Bradley itself, and we consider it to have a harmful impact on the landscape. It's quite a rural entrance into Ashbourne, into Bradley, sorry, with only the two dwellings, which used to be a farm. And then we don't know what the impact will be on hedgerows, whether or not they're considered important or not in terms of legislation purposes. It would be imagined that any sort of works to highways, creating driveways and things, would have an impact on that. So we'd need to understand more on that. But if there was an impact, obviously, on an important hedgerow, it would be, it would add another consideration to it on top of landscape impact anyway. So I've put forward 2 reasons for refusal on that basis, on the basis of unsustainable location, so lack of principle for the development, and then also the unknown impact on the hedgerows and trees in that location. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Lees.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know it's only an outline application, but I can't for the life of me see why the Highways Authority have no objection in principle. Surely they've either got an objection or they haven't. And I think, is this another one of those desktop exercises? They've never been to site again? Or could you confirm if they have been to site? That's my question. Have they been out to site and had a look? Or is it a desktop one again?
Have they been out to site?
I don't know if they have or not.
Because
My
it just
assumption
seems
would
seems a pointless exercise in saying in principle
Yes, we
no
can.
objection. But that's my question
Okay.
is, have they been to site or not? And we don't know.
Any other questions? Councillor Limpthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in the hedgerows and what the Chair of the Parish Council was saying. Do we know who owns which boundary hedges and what impact they would have?
I think it was certificate. I think certificate A was signed. So I suppose in terms of that, they probably don't know who the other ownership was. Right. But if they were, even if it was put forward to be approved, they wouldn't be able to. If it's owned by other people, it would be a civil matter. So there would still be protections. But at the moment, there's no details as to who owns the hedgerows as such. But I am aware of the stewardship scheme, and also obviously the inference from our tree officer that it might be important hedgerow, but we don't have any sort of details of the particular ownership as such. Say if there was, if we were to approve it, it would have to go to them if it's the ownership of something, and they'd have to apply, if it was considered to be an important hedgerow, you'd have to apply separately to undertake any works to important hedgerow under the Hedgerow Removal Act. So it would be, if they allowed it, they'd still have to go through an application process separately to that as well.
Okay, thank you. I haven't done one of these before, so I'm sorry if my question's a bit stupid. So we're being asked to refuse on the basis that we don't have enough information about the hedgerows.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems very sort of cut and dry, yes or no. Would there be an option of saying, can we hang on and see if
I think
more
because the
information
principle, I think the issue is the principle of the development not being, we
Right.
consider the principle not to be, there's no principle for development, we wouldn't consider it to meet the criteria of an infill and consolidation plot.
Right.
So if it's in the countryside outside a settlement, in certain tiered villages, so 4th and 5th tier, which is what Bradley is, there is opportunities for infill and consolidation. So that's sort of where there might be a brownfield site, or perhaps potentially a row of houses, or where there's quite a bit of built framework. But in this case, it's sort of the entrance to the village, albeit there is a house sort of there and a cottage, but they were part of a farm beforehand. So it's quite away from the built framework of Bradley. So it's in terms of the hedgerow, I think if it was the case that the principle of development was to be supported, we would have asked for more information in terms of important hedgerow. But in this case, because the principle's not there, it's just to say, as well as the principle, we also have concerns of, we don't know what would happen to this hedgerow, and we would imagine that any works like landscaping, access and things would impact that hedgerow. And we don't know if it's important or not, but it's still an important landscaping feature, and obviously ownership and things, issues outside of that. So it's sort of an additional reason for refusal, but the main reason for refusal I've put forward is the fact I don't think it's an infill and consolidation plot. I don't think it's sustainable where it is. So that's the principle's not there in theory for the development.
Lovely, thank you, that's very clear.
You've changed your mind? Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, would somebody like to move this in one way or another? Councillor Dobbs?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to move officer recommendations for refusal. I think the reasons for refusal have been sensibly chosen. If you bear in mind with the plan that we've got there, the bit with the red line round it, that has got to contain a house, although this is a reserve matters, this is outline. You get the feeling that it actually is a very small plot on a very narrow road, and I think the reasons chosen are good, and for refusal is the right choice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Lees?
Yeah, happy to second it, Chair. For all the same reasons that you've recommended. I would like to see, I don't know if it's possible at this stage, I suppose, to come at reserve matters with highway safety. Could that be another recommendation as well at this point, or not?
I think as a principal, would you add one, or the principal's not there anyway? Do you think?
Because highway safety is a big issue with this site and this narrow lane.
Well, can we just add concern? Well, so can I just say that we're not in questions anymore. We're seconding a motion, but could we change the motion to maybe add? The motion could be to refuse for all the reasons in the report and highway safety. Could we not just do that?
Or not enough information provided to understand
The highway
yeah,
impact
so.
on the highway.
I think that.
Yeah.
Councillor Dodds,
That's all right with
would you be happy
Councillor
with that?
Happy to include those. We'll just run through the wording again. What am I happy with?
Insufficient information on the highway impact on the highways, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, is that okay? Okay, so does anybody else have anything to say on this? No? All in favour of the motion to refuse as worded as we've just said? Okay, that's unanimous. Great. Okay. So moving on then to application 4.4. This is for a change of use and some changes to 8 Green Hill, Wirksworth, and this is being introduced again by Gina Huffan.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for a change of use from a dwelling into a one-bedroom holiday let. It's with replacement doors and windows. It's located on 8 Green Hill, so it's located on Green Hill at Wirksworth. So the external alterations are the replacement of existing windows and doors with timber sliding sash and solid timber doors and replacement of rainwater goods, and then the use of the building from a one-bedroom dwelling into a one-bed holiday let. I know this was deferred previously and we've gone to consider the use of it, and we've just got more information in terms of it's going to be used as a holiday let rather than a holiday let in a second home. And we've concluded that although there might be highway concerns, because of the topography and the layout of the current of Green Hill anyway, there can be concerns with parking anyway, because there's lack of off-street parking as well. So we've considered that the economic benefits of an additional holiday let would outweigh the potential highways concerns, which we've also added a condition on to secure a management plan to try and avoid any inconsiderate parking down there. So it's so we've made a recommendation of approval to allow for the for the alterations, which are say just limited to windows, doors and rainwater goods all being replaced, and then the change of use to a holiday let. Thank you.
Okay, questions? Councillor Dobbs. I'm sorry, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Economic impact. I wondered how you determined that the economic impact was going to be positive, more positive than providing an additional house. Are there reports that say that tourist holiday lets are more valuable than housing, or how was that determined?
Through you, Chair. That was a view that was taken based on the likely spend of holiday occupiers to the accommodation in the local area, but there is no specific metrics, shall we say, that I can refer to base that on.
So can you tell me how much a holidaymaker will spend in the area?
No, I can't.
And how much a resident would spend in the area?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of any such figures.
So in fact, there's no evidence that documented evidence that a visitor is going to spend more than somebody living there. Yet we're saying that a house is going to be lost to a holiday let because of an allegation, a belief that that a holidaymaker will spend more than a local person. Can I move on to another point? You say there's one bedroom houses are not a housing type that is applicable. That what do you say? In 7.17, you say, given the very modest size of the dwelling and noting the housing needs stipulated within the Wirksworth neighbourhood plan, one-bedroom properties are not a specified housing type, but they are in terms of our affordable housing. And in the local plan, we talk about 1- and 2-bedroom houses and 3-bedroom houses. So it is a particular housing type.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, and why? So why were we saying that it's not a housing type that is of value in Derbyshire Dales?
Chair, I think this is perhaps not particularly well or phrased as clearly as it could be in the report. I mean, I think it clearly is currently being used for housing. If the change of use were to occur, there would be a loss of a dwelling. I think what the wording of that paragraph is referring to is that one-bedroom properties are not a specified house type. But obviously, I appreciate the point that the building is currently used as a residential dwelling, which could be used for local residents. If it were to change use, then obviously it would not be available for use by local residents, and this is an on-balance consideration which the committee have to come to a view on as to what factors it gives more weight to in terms of the overall balance,
okay,
as with the economic impacts as well.
Right, I'm actually concerned because it's very difficult for us to refuse after the officers have recommended, and in this case, you know, we're losing a house and we're gaining a holiday let, and I wonder whether that's necessary. I have another question, which is about why the highways recommendation has not been accepted by officers, and we live on a lane. Our garage is onto a lane, and we have a holiday let on that lane. And fortunately, it's beyond our garage. But whenever there's a changeover, cars come down the lane, block the lane, and people cannot get past. And that happens possibly 2-3 times a week. So can I ask how it is possible that Green Hill can be used for even temporary parking by visitors?
Again, I think this is a matter of judgment. There is the point that when people come and visit a holiday let, they will stop to unload luggage, offload people, and then there could be some disruption to the highway network. Equally, with a residential property, you have Amazon delivery vans and the type and that type of thing, and people coming and going, servicing the property. So there is always going to be a level of disruption to the highway network for that type of use as well. So both can have an impact. The lane is narrow. It's likely that there would be some impacts arising from a residential use. It is likely that there will be impacts also arising from the proposed use. On balance, officers recommended that the considerations, in our view, weighed in favour, but these are somewhat subjective matters.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. I reserve speaking to
Councillor Linthwaite and then Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I think the last time we heard, there were over 1,000 people on our housing waiting list. The number had gone up slightly. And I'm just curious how many people on that list are potentially single occupants. So they're effectively looking for a one-bedroomed house.
I suspect that we don't know the answer to that. Does anybody know the answer to that?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question.
Sorry, I wasn't
That was your question? Okay. Councillor Slack.
Yes, I'm connected. Yes, Derbyshire County Council Highways have objected against this in their submission and stated on a number of occasions that road safety on this very narrow steep hill with no footpath is a danger for vehicles coming, unloading, and holiday lets will be unloading probably twice a week because they'll be coming and going and coming and going. My question on this issue is, are Derbyshire Highways professionals in highways and road safety? Is that right or wrong? Just a question, is that right or wrong? Do you count them as professionals in highways and road safety?
Councillor Slack, I'm sure the answer is yes.
Yes, they are professionals.
Do you have a further question?
Yeah, so you went against the county council, in which the second question is very similar really. The Wirksworth Town Council and Wirksworth Civic Society have a great amount of local residents objected on two main issues on this road safety network and local people on the waiting list. And I can tell you there is a lot of people on the waiting list and young people as well.
Councillor Slack, do you have
They
a
are
question?
correct in their assessment or not? Again, are they correct in their assessment or not?
Do you want to answer that, or shall we leave it as a...
I think we can agree that there's housing needs locally, and that's a matter for the committee to weigh in the balance with the other matters that have been raised tonight. It's obviously a key issue that needs to be considered, the loss of the housing versus any potential planning benefit to be gained from the change of use to holiday let.
Yeah, thank you. So they are right.
Okay.
Also, just one more question, Chair. Wirksworth Civic Society also object against this application on a number of issues. So the second question is, are they, Wirksworth Civic Society, wrong or right in their assessment?
Councillor Slack, I think these are rhetorical questions that you're entitled to ask, but I think they're really more points for they're more points for the debate, so we can come back to you in the debate.
We'll come back to debate on most of this, but I think I'd like the officers to say if they're right or wrong on the issues they've made. But we'll come back to debate on that.
I can't really comment on whether people are right or wrong. Planning is a matter of judgment, and there's a balance to be made.
Not on well professionals.
And officers have come to one view. The committee will obviously consider that. I can't be drawn on whether I think specific individuals or organisations are right or wrong, because the way that officers have considered it is overall on balance, and it may be that we do accept and understand some of those points that are being made. It's just that on balance, taking into account all of the considerations, the recommendation is one for approval. I appreciate that doesn't answer the question directly, but hopefully it sheds some light on it.
I reserve the right, Chair, to come back in debate.
Councillor Shelley. Councillor Slack, can you turn your mic off, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chris, for the report. Just a quick question. As a matter of principle, when we get larger applications for new developments, we usually have comment from the Council's housing team. I noticed that that's not the case with this, so we are a little bit in the dark when it comes to the facts and figures and the requirements for housing. Being on the local Plan Subcommittee, I know we've talked about housing numbers and need quite a lot, and I do think that is a serious consideration in this case. But I'm just curious about why we don't have direct input from the housing officers, both on this one and the following application. Thank you.
I must admit I don't know what the threshold is for, as I'm relatively new to the authority of consulting the housing team, but I note your comments, and I think perhaps in future on this type of application it would be useful to get comments from the housing team in relation to housing demand.
Councillor Battle.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Chris, I've got a question which is to do with the Wirksworth Neighbourhood Plan 2015. How do we, or how do you, to be more accurate, apply balance? What do you put on the other side? Is it the right of people to do what they want with their property, or is it something slightly more complex?
Chair, I think I'd need to understand what specific policy you're referring to.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll try and be a bit clearer. I'm under the impression that Wirksworth's off the idea of converting homes into holiday lets. It's something that they do not support. Why did we, and what did we put on the other side from the neighbourhood, as it were?
I think the policy you're referring to is about second homes. Is that correct? Yeah. So that wouldn't be a policy that would be relevant to the consideration of this application, because it's not a second home application. It's a holiday let application, which is different in planning law terms.
Okay, great. I'm obviously wrong, because I thought that.
Can I come in here? I think what Councillor Battle is referring to is the clause that's sometimes referred to as the Wirksworth clause, which says that new dwellings should be for permanent residents only. Is that the thing you're referring to? Yes, but it's for new dwellings. That's. It's for new dwellings. We Councillor Slack, with respect, we looked up the wording. It is for new dwellings. It does not say anything about change of use, although change of use would be implied if it wasn't previously a dwelling.
Because Wirksworth Cinema has got that clause in it.
Yes,
Going to build flats, and also
but that was previously not a dwelling.
With Gareth Griffiths,
but would you like to comment on that?
Planning officer at the time, and he oversaw all that, and you've gone completely against that.
I mean, the chair has summarised the position. We have looked at that policy, and that is about new dwellings, and this isn't a new dwelling. It's actually proposing a change of use away from a dwelling. So that policy would apply if there was a proposal to build a new house, but it doesn't apply if you're proposing to change use from a dwelling to a different kind of land use. So it doesn't apply in this instance.
Could I just say thank you for that elucidation.
Okay, any other questions? Remember, we're still in questions. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, would anybody like to propose a motion? Councillor Dobbs.
Yes, Chair. I'm happy to go with officer recommendations, and if I can explain. Clearly this is very difficult, and I can see exactly what certain members are anxious to avoid. But those of us who went on the site visit saw building in significant dereliction, and if you look back on Street View, it's clearly been derelict for quite a while. So it's not that we're suddenly taking a house away from somebody who was permanently letting it or permanently living in there. It's not been very attractive to buyers, presumably for some time. Now, there may be more complicated reasons for that. But that's worth bearing in mind. Worth bearing in mind is that at this moment there's at least one other property on Green Hill for sale, and in the advert it says for residents or for holiday let. You know, we need to be very careful that we're not, because of the circumstances in front of us, actually restricting what people can do for reasons that perhaps are not absolutely in line with planning law. The other point is that I think actually the interpretation of the highways advice that officers have made is actually a correct one. It is true, I think, that holidaymakers will be perfectly willing to forego the inconvenience for a short period of time of briefly dropping their luggage off, getting out of the car and parking it somewhere else. I've certainly done that on holidays before, and not even touching the car for the duration of the holiday. So in fact, the amount of road use from the two types of user, I think, has been correctly analysed, and I think actually highways perhaps have been mistaken on this point. I make absolute acknowledgement that this is difficult, but I don't think we've got a reason in planning law to stop them doing what they're doing. They're taking a house out of dereliction and turning it into something that is actually economically useful, and therefore I do support officer recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Dobbs. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. I'm very happy to second this for the reasons that Peter has outlined. I suspect one of the reasons that somebody's looking at this for a holiday let, which they're entitled to do, is economically it's more likely to bring in more income than just renting it to a local, sadly.
Okay, so we're going to move into debate. Before we do, I'd like to say that I'm quite torn on this for the same reasons, because we need to remember that there would be nothing stopping somebody from renovating it and then just making it. There are different types of holiday lets, some of which you don't need planning permission for. And if they did that, we wouldn't be able to impose a travel plan or any of the other things on them. So I feel torn about this myself, but I would like to invite other comments. Councillor Linthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. There are two estate agents in Wirksworth. One doesn't seem to do rentals. The one that does, I looked on their website today, and there are currently 8 properties for rent in Wirksworth, 4 of which are commercial properties. 3 have already been let, and the one remaining is a 1-bedroom cottage in Middleton, so it's not even in Wirksworth. I gave that estate agent a call, and I asked them about the demand for rental accommodation, 1 3-bedroom houses, and I said, do they, is there a lot of interest? And the lady laughed, and she said, a property that's in reasonable condition and with reasonable rent is normally gone within a week. Those that are a bit more expensive or have got something a bit odd about them, 2 weeks. So I take on board entirely what Chris has said, thank you, and Peter's comments. It is a really difficult one because my gut is telling me this is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Because, I know of at least 2 people myself who would like a 1-bedroomed rental property in Wirksworth. However, do we actually have planning reasons for refusing this? Clearly not. So I'm very torn. Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to rabble.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. We do have planning reasons, and the 5-year housing supply is sufficient reason. It may not be, it may be derelict at the moment, but houses are renovated, they are then lived in, and we would be removing this permanently from the possibility of being used as accommodation. It would become a holiday let. As far as the highways advice is concerned, highways get involved with change of use or a new application. They may be concerned about highway use, traditional highway use, but there's very little they can do about that. But when they when on change of use they can do something about that. And in this case, they feel that it's necessary to point out the safety issues associated with increased traffic on a green hill. So I can't support this motion. We have a 5-year housing supply. We're way down on our ability to service that housing supply. There's demand for rental accommodation in Wirksworth. We need to meet that private rental accommodation requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Shelley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as a former tenant, single tenant in Wirksworth, I know the situation in the housing market there as on the rental side of things. And like Councillor Hughes, I'm finding it very, very difficult to support this kind of application when we know and we have evidence, which we're using in other aspects of our planning function here on the council, to try and steer developers towards providing precisely this kind of accommodation. Now, the condition of it at the moment may be poor, but that's not a reason for us to abrogate that particular responsibility. So it is our duty actually to try and persuade owners of housing stock and developers of new housing to deliver the kind of level of housing that we need in Derbyshire Dales. And this kind of location is ideal for people who don't necessarily have access to cars. We're talking a lot about cars at the moment as if they're the only thing that's the question here, but this is actually in a very, very serviceable location in the town centre where somebody who doesn't have that particular form of transport could easily live, and the same applies actually to the next application, which we're going to consider in a minute as well. I find it very strange as well that we're faced many, many times with inexplicable decisions by the Highways Authority where they don't oppose something, they have no objections. On the rare occasion when they do object to something, we seem to be putting forward the opposite case. So on this occasion, I would like to support the Highways Authority in their objection and think that that alone is a sufficient reason. Just as speaking as somebody who's trying to compare the use of accommodation by a holiday maker or a resident, I also think that a resident over time, quite quickly actually in the case of somewhere like Greenhill, which is notoriously difficult, will quickly become accustomed to the parking conditions and the need, if they have a car, to keep their vehicle well away from there. Whereas a holiday maker, with all of the best management plan that you might have, will I think be surprised perhaps at how tricky that particular road is. So I think that weighs in favour of a local resident rather than the holiday use. And I'm sorry if this is putting a spoke in somebody's wheel when it comes to making money out of this accommodation, but I just think that for the reasons I've stated, it's very, very important to maintain the local housing stock.
Councillor Slack, and then Councillor Looser.
Thank you, Chairman. I was born in Wirksworth, and Greenhill is the steepest, narrowest hill in the Wirksworth ward. It also has no pavements at all. It's very quaint, it's very old. I always avoid trying to come up or go down Greenhill. I mostly turn round at the top of the dale and come back down onto the marketplace. On the site visit recently, the driver of the small minibus was very, very concerned and apprehensive about going up Greenhill. He would prefer to drop us off on the marketplace and us to walk up Greenhill rather than go himself. He did stress that, but we did go up, and he was, I could say how nervous he was. Just imagine coming down twice a week to unload cars into holiday lets. Just imagine that. Twice a week you'd be, some stop half a week, some stop for a week, but they'd have to come and unload and then come back and load up again. That hill is going to be used quite considerably by the two holiday lets. if yellow lines were put on the historic part of Wirksworth, it would be a shame, and it would not be right for put yellow lines there at all. I surveyed in the evening and increased all the year round a shortage of short stay visitors would have nowhere to park at all. Wirksworth is a very, very poor town for parking. It's probably the worst town in the district. It is the worst town in the district for parking, and it's a pullback for Wirksworth, because Wirksworth at the moment is in gaining all the time, with the farmers' markets are very, very successful, and other markets at the weekend. There's a great number of single young people on the waiting list in Wirksworth, and if you want to check this out with Wirksworth Town Council, they'll tell you how many there is on it. There's a great number of also people waiting for two-bedroom properties, so the two-bedroom properties could become either rented property, or they could sell them as to principal residents. Yes, Wirksworth welcomes visitors, but there's a number of hotels and B&Bs in the town, and many farms now are diversing into pods and small chalets around the Wirksworth area. Yes, this application should be refused on the highway, on DDC highways and road safety, and the very steep hill and narrow dangerous hill. Also, homes for local people are definitely needed, without a doubt about that. There should be more homes for local people, and we're neglecting that by agreeing to these to become holiday lets. I'm quite surprised at the officers going down that road, because previously the officers had the support of the Wirksworth Neighbourhood Plan. The Wirksworth Neighbourhood Plan was democratically voted a few years ago, and this seems to be completely forgot about. So I think you're wrong. I do really think you're wrong, and I urge them councillors to vote against this. I'm sorry to go against officers' recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, like one or two others, I'm on the fence at the moment, to be honest, because Green Hill, I worked there for a number of years, actually, at the bottom of the Green Hill, where it's at its widest on the Historical Building Trust building. We renovated that some years ago, and to be honest, it was a nightmare with the traffic. Anything more or larger than a pickup truck, you wouldn't get around the corner at the bottom. And I'm just on the fence at the moment, because I'm just trying to, in my own mind, whether to weigh up whether there's more traffic produced by somebody living there all the time, or whether there's more traffic by all the lets coming and going, which has impact on the Dale. And there's a car park just around the corner on the Dale there, which we used to use when we was building. I think it's a public car park, so it's not many miles away to carry your stuff up the hill. So I'm just listening to what everybody's got to say, but I'm just undecided at the moment. But it is, just because it's a little tucked away alleyway, road round, it is quite busy during the day. There's quite a lot of traffic goes up and round there.
Thank you, Councillor Boynton. Possibly. Is that your full contribution?
I guess my question is...
We're past the... Well, yeah, okay, yes.
It's a bit of a strange one. There isn't a separate use class for holiday lets, so it's done on a factoring degree. So there's lots of case law about what constitutes a change of use. So in some cases, if there was plenty of perhaps parking if you were in a situation where you had, you know, housing land supply was a particular issue and various other things, or you weren't having to make any alterations to the building, you might be in a position where you could just say, well, you could make the argument that is there any difference between somebody occupying it, a one-bed dwelling, as just a dwelling house, or somebody occupying it, you know, who's perhaps visiting for a week. So there is some like more nuance in this. In terms of this building, because it's in the Article 4, it's in Wirksworth Conservation Area and it's protected by the Article 4 direction, the external alterations to the building require planning permission, so the replacement windows and doors. And when we sort of visited the site, there is works that I would say need doing to the building. So I think if it is a very factoring degree thing, but in terms of this, we'd know that they'd have to make some amount of alterations really to the building to make it use, you know, for it to be able to be used again. But it's a very strange situation in terms of the use class issue, because at one point they were looking at the government were looking at creating a separate use class for holiday lets, which seems to have gone quiet again. So they've gone on factor and degree. So we sort of look as is things like highways. In this case, if it was you know, in a somewhere where there's lots of off-road parking or something like that, it might be that highways would look at it differently. But there is certainly cases where you wouldn't need permission. But in terms of when you're looking at things like housing, if it's affecting housing supply, if you've got less than so many years, or if it's quite a big building, so if you're losing any sort of, I suppose, you're losing a 3-bed and you've got mainly family, perhaps dwellings wanted in that area, that's something else. But factor and degree is something that there's so much case law about, you know, changing to holiday lets. But in this case, I think for the fact that we know that alterations will be required, it needs work to be used again as something. We've looked at that, and obviously the impact it will have on losing a 1-bed dwelling and then a 3-bed for the next case is to why we've considered it. That's part of what we're considering, is the use of the building as a holiday let. But there is certain circumstances where you could say, you could make the argument that, you know, there isn't any difference between the occupation of this as a holiday let as it would be as one person living there or 2 person. But it is there's lots of case law. It's very dependent on highway, you know, highway impact, the size of accommodation, the use of accommodation, if it's going to be like, you know, short term or longer term, things like that. So it is a very grey area, but it is something where you sort of look at things like alterations and things like that. And we know that this building, or both the buildings, require some amount of alterations that require planning permission, and also obviously the impact of the change of use. So that's why that's been considered. But there would be cases where they might not need a change of use or other planning permissions. But I think in this case they would need it anyway because of the associated alterations. So, you know, I don't think there would be another case unless, because they always need to do alterations to it, in theory, in this case, which would be with permitted development rights are removed for making alterations in that particular area. So there is a level of control because obviously we know that there's got to be some alterations made to that building. But in some cases, you could make the argument that something doesn't need change of use. But it is a very grey area. But in this case, we would say with the alterations required because they need something to do something to the building, and the impact it's going to have on things as well. That's why we've said it needs permission in this case.
Thank you for that detailed explanation. But just if this is refused, then from what you're telling me, it could just be let anyway without any alterations on the basis of perhaps case law. Is that correct?
No.
Chair, if I can clarify. So the alterations is one aspect of it, but the applicant has applied for a change of use in this instance because they themselves consider that it would fall into the sui generis type of use. My understanding is that they are a company that do this as a commercial enterprise. Where it can get less clear is where you have individuals, perhaps they own a second home, perhaps they're there for quite a substantial proportion of the year themselves, but then for the rest of the year they let it out for holiday lets, so they become that's just one example of where you can have a grey area. But I think what I would advise the committee is you have an application before you for a change of use, So that's what you've got to assess. But as you rightly point out, there could be situations that could arise in the future where a similar use doesn't need planning permission, but you have in front of you an application for change of use, which you're duty bound to consider tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Buttle.
Thank you very much, Gina. Well, Lucy, Gina. Actually, we're not in questions anymore, are we? So I'll just launch in. I don't really feel like I know enough about the housing, whether or not housing cascades in Wirksworth. I know where I live. There's a shortage of small houses, and there are a lot of people with big houses that would like to move into smaller houses. So I don't think it's a particularly strong argument to say that a single bedroom house is of lesser worth, because just it being there may actually, and being added to the stock, as it were, is a worthwhile house, a good, nice, shiny house that someone with lots of money can buy. That might necessarily reduce or produce more housing higher up the ladder. So I don't think I can go for that one. And the highways one is also tricky. But then I absolutely respect Dermot and Peter. They know what they are. So I don't know where I'm going to go with this yet. But so that's a really rubbish. I don't know. I'll just give up now, shall I? Right. Sorry about that.
Thank you for that eloquent contribution, Councillor Buttle. Go on.
Can I just come back, Chair? Just to make, like most of us, I think we're all puzzled, or majority of us. So basically, if we go ahead with the recommendation, we've got control of what happens there, whereas if we go against it and they still let it out, we've got no control. Is that right?
Chair, the way that the application is tonight, I think you have to consider the application in front of you that you do have control, and perhaps put to the back of your. I'll take advice. It may be advisable to get legal advice on this, but you have the application in front of you tonight. It is very much going to be a commercial type of activity that is being proposed through this application. So I would advise you to consider this application on that basis. We don't know what could then come forward or not come forward in future. That's, I guess, a matter for a future time. But I would advise you to consider the application in front of you tonight and consider it on its relative merits.
Okay, so you've already spoken, and so have you. But okay, can you keep it brief, please, because you have already spoken. Thank you.
Chair, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak again. So we know it's a commercial organisation that's bought this property in order to let it out. We don't know how long it's owned it, but it's let it go into ruin, and having gone into ruin, it has to be redeveloped. And so the commercial property, I don't know who the owner is. Are they local, or are they own a national company? Will the profit remain in the local area, or will it leave? Will the benefit be to the restaurants and cafes and so on in Wirksworth, or will it not? We don't know about that, because really we don't know what the economic impact of this is, and the balance in this particular recommendation is on the economic impact of a holiday let over meeting the housing need. And I think we all have a concern about meeting our housing need that surely trumps the ability of a commercial organisation who may not be resident in Wirksworth or even in Derbyshire Dales, making a profit out of a scarce resource in Derbyshire Dales. We've got highways saying it's not feasible to park on Green Hill. I'd second that. It's difficult to get up Green Hill in a car, and we understand that if there are one person living in the property might very well not have a car. Public transport in Wirksworth is really very good. You can get all the way to Sheffield on a bus, on an electric bus, You don't need a car if you live that close to the centre of Wirksworth. It may very well suit somebody who would do that if this commercial organisation chose to put the house back on the market and allowed somebody else to build it. Perhaps, Stuart, you could turn that into a very nice house available.
Councillor Hughes.
So thank you very much.
That wasn't very quickly, but okay. Does anybody who hasn't spoken yet wish to speak? Councillor Slack, can you say it in 30 seconds?
Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me speak again. I thought you were refusing me. Right. I would suggest that when you said you lost control if we go against officers' recommend, I would suggest we keep control, because you're losing control because you're letting affordable holiday lets come in. We're losing control, and could even start the ball rolling in Wirksworth, and we could lose control altogether. We need housing. We need to stamp our ground on this. We need social and affordable housing, and we're turning our back on this for profit-making companies. So we shouldn't do this. We should not at all do this, and we should stand by what we believe in, and as morals and facts, what we believe in. So I suggest we turn this down, and I hope you all agree with me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to say? Oh, yes, Councillor Dobbs, you may come back.
Thank you, Chair. Just to try to pull some threads together. I don't think anybody is thinking about parking on Green Hill. This site has no off-road parking, so I think that isn't a consideration for anybody living there. I think the highways issue is marginal. I think the key thing for me is to think what will happen if we do refuse. I think it'll very probably go to appeal. If it doesn't go to appeal, it will probably be sold. And the only person that would likely to come in again is somebody else who wants to make a profit, and probably is two separate lots. And almost certainly, because of the business of off-road parking, it will not go to a standard family. There may be some niche people for whom it fits perfectly, but they would not probably be on the people who are banging on the door of the estate agents trying to find rental properties, three-bed rental properties, because they probably are looking for some off-road parking. If you can afford the rent on that, you probably are both, in a family, two people earning two cars to get away. I think we're chasing a scenario which just doesn't exist for the ideal person for this as a long-term rental. I think if we do refuse it, the outcome will not be better. I agree there's lots of things we don't like about it, but to come back to the point, at least we have some control. And if it doesn't work out for the person as a holiday rental, then of course it probably could go to long-term rental, but at least it'll be brought back into use by the time that happens. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Murphy, did you want to sum up or anything? Okay, in that case, we'll go to a vote. So a reminder, the motion is for officer recommendations. All those in favour? All those against? Oh no, I was going to abstain.
You can?
Yeah, but then it's tied.
But then you have
Yeah, but then I have to. There's no point in abstaining, is there? Have you not? No. Okay, so.
So can we just go back to
can we go back to those against? 4. And abstentions. And I was going to abstain as well. Okay, we'll call it that. I'll stick with my abstention. That means the motion isn't carried. Is that correct?
Can I just check?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, we'll just hold on a second. We'll take a break for 3 or 4 minutes because we need to check the status of this. Okay. So that motion was tied, which means it fails. Does anybody have another vote, another motion? Yeah, and I haven't cast it. Doesn't.
Chair, can I suggest something else then? Motion to approve, except since the rules about letting are as diffuse and grey, can we not stipulate that for 1 calendar year the minimum rental period is 4 months? Can we do that?
I don't think we can.
Chair, I think, in my view, that wouldn't meet the tests that planning conditions have to adhere to. There's a number of planning tests. They have to be reasonable and they have to be necessary in order to make the development acceptable in planning terms. In my view, it wouldn't meet those tests. I can understand what Councillor Dobbs is trying to do, but I think in planning terms it wouldn't actually meet those very strict legal tests that planning conditions have to comply with, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Dobbs. I'm really sorry.
Thank you, that's all right. I just don't have the beard. I like to have that beard, but my beard isn't anywhere near as good as that one. Yeah, I'm going to propose that we refuse this on 3 grounds. The first is the Highways recommendation. The second is the 5-year housing supply. And the third is about building sustainable communities. And I'm not sure which policy that in our local plan is about building sustainable communities, but the short-term holiday lets don't enable sustainable communities to be built. They damage those communities. So that on those 3 grounds, I would refuse this application.
Chair, point of order. Yeah. Have we not had a decision on this among ourselves, and it has resulted in a stalemate?
So no, so because the vote was tied, that means the motion that Councillor Dobbs put forward falls. Yes. Which means we don't have a decision. We neither refuse or approve. We didn't approve it, but we need grounds for refusal, and Councillor Hughes has just supplied those.
Yeah. Doesn't the chair still have casting vote? Choose which way the vote?
Yes, I chose not to use it.
Oh right. So that's your discretion, basically.
Wirksworth neighbourhood plan has been democratically voted by the residents.
Okay, but it's not.
And that's on today with 3 points.
It's not relevant.
We established that it's not relevant in this
relevant
case.
to Wirksworth people, and yeah, I must say it's so easy to say that, but the Wirksworth people are solidly behind the Wirksworth neighbourhood plan.
No, I know, but it's that particular clause, the way it's worded, doesn't apply in this particular case. So if we put it in, it will just get, and it does go to appeal. It will just get knocked
watering down the neighbourhood plan now, are we?
No, that's not what you said.
It looks to be that way.
Okay, so are we okay with those as grounds for refusal? Have we got them down and we're okay with them?
Can I comment? So?
Yeah.
Chair, with your permission, thank you. I'll just comment and provide advice to the committee. I think on the highways reason for suggested reason for refusal, there is policy HC19 and HC21 and policy which refer to highways matters and parking standards, and policy EC8 which is about tourist development and refers back to highways considerations. The Highway Authority have given advice that the proposed development would constrain the free and safe flow of traffic, and would increase risk of conflict between vehicles and pedestrians, detrimentally affecting highway safety. So that would be contrary to those policies I've just mentioned, and I think that would be a reason for refusal that could be justified at appeal, especially in light of the comments from the Highways Authority. I think I can understand completely concerns in the community and concerns from members about loss of these dwellings to a type of use which is not housing. I make no comment on that other than to say we would only be talking about the loss of 2 dwellings, which arguably is in the grand scheme of things, although I appreciate locally it's important, perhaps not the strongest of considerations. And then finally, on the third proposed reason for refusal, again, I understand where it's coming from, and I understand the concern about having mixed and balanced communities, but I don't feel that there is a specific policy within the local plan that proposed reason for refusal could directly tie in with. And again, I'll leave my comment there at that point.
Okay. Councillor Lees.
Sorry, Chair. Would policy S2 fit into any of those categories? Settlement hierarchy?
Okay, so while we're looking at that, Councillor Hughes, do you want to take a couple of minutes to
Well, I think
formulate
policy S1 is about sustainable development principles, and it is providing for a mix of types and tenures of quality homes to meet the needs and aspirations of existing and future residents in sustainable locations, and that refers to policy HC11. Minimising the need for travel by promoting development in locations where there is access to a broad range of jobs, services and facilities which are accessible by foot, cycle, public transport with reduced reliance on the private car. And that applies in this particular location. Yeah. So those two. So that second one is HC19. And also policy S7, which is particularly about Matlock, Wirksworth, Dundaley, Dale.
Shall we adjourn for a couple of minutes so that you can...
Well, I think that's probably about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot. Right. Providing for the housing needs of the community by planning a sustainable housing mix.
Chair, I've reviewed. I mean, I've reviewed those policies. I think they make very general points about sustainable communities. Policy HC11 talks about housing mix and type, so that's obviously relevant if you were proposing a housing, if a housing application were being proposed, it would need to comply with that, or that this is actually changing away from housing. I do maintain my previous advice but policy S1 does at least refer to sustainable development principles, and policy HC 19 does talk about delivering sustainable patterns of development. I must say, my previous advice, I stand by it, that I think the links to these policies are not strong, but it's for the committee to take a view on.
Okay, so Councillor Hughes, have you come to a decision as to what you want the reasons for refusal to be in your motion?
Well, certainly the refusal by the comments that that Highways have made about access and parking and so on Green Hill, and the 5-year housing supply, because we get this the other way around on many applications by developers who say, well, there's no 5-year housing supply, so the land has to be released, and we say, yes, okay, we will release the land. Now, in this case, we're not saying that the land needs to be, but the same principle applies even if it is only one house or two houses.
Okay. Okay. So with those, have you got those? With those two reasons for refusal, that's the motion. Yeah. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buttle, do you want to speak?
Yes, please. Yeah, I was a little bit tentative earlier in my thoughts as to how to define why I was against this, and I found David's comments very helpful. I think the HC19 and S1 both apply. I feel they do. I can't really go much better than that. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Slack, then Councillor Shelley, then Councillor Dobbs.
Very important. I mean, it's a really dangerous road, and the highways have got it correct. There's no doubt about that. We can't get out of that one. The highways have got it correct. In this case, not all, but they have in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Shelley.
Thank you. I mean, I understand that the temptation just to go for one really solid, watertight reason for refusal, because that looks better at appeal. But I think in this case, we're also trying to send messages to other potential developers as well. And so for that reason, I would argue that the refusal, if it isn't already in there, should also refer to supplementary reasons for refusal, which are in this case S1 and H19.
Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. You won't be surprised to hear that I'm not going to support the new motion. I think the fact that there was a struggle to find reasons speaks volumes for the likely fate at appeal. My prediction, if we refuse, it'll still be empty in 2 years' time. And third, surely logically, if highways get their way, they'll be perfectly happy with it being empty, but perhaps we won't be. Undoubtedly, you can solve the transport issue by not putting anybody there. I don't think there's much to choose between the two options of having it holiday let or fully let in its impact on highways. I think it's I've talked too much, obviously. Cue to shut up.
Through you, Chair, I just want to give a little bit more information about the lack of 5-year housing land supply, because we're trying to use this in a sort of a negative way against against a development, and just want to read out that the absence of development, and that's under the MPPF under paragraph 11D. It says that the presumption operates to make it harder, not easier, to refuse proposals that provide new development. It applies to applications for new dwellings, not to the loss of a single unit. To use such as a holiday accommodation. Now, I'm not saying no to to you as members, but I'm just sort of setting out the expectation of reasons for refusal. And when you do go to appeal, those that are set against our own plan, development plan policies, supported by evidence, are easier to defend than using our own lack of 5-year housing land supply as a reason for refusal. So I just wanted to add to make sure that reasons for refusal are backed up by evidence in our own policies.
So, Councillor Hughes, do you wish to change your motion?
Kerry, you're right to point holes in any argument. So we can't use the 5-year housing supply, you're saying?
What I'm saying is just laying out the level of expectation of what is a more... all of these are weighted, aren't they, in terms of reasons for refusal. I can't sit here and just accept that that's a strong, without saying that it's not as strong as basing it on local plan policies. So I'm certainly not saying no, but I'm just saying do with an air of caution that if that was the only reason for refusal, then that speaks volumes. But make sure that any reason for refusal is based on evidence, and our own policy is stronger.
Very difficult. So I think I will revert to the refusal by the lack of support by the Highways Authority, which can then translate into various policies in our local plan.
Okay. Are you still happy to second that? Okay.
Yes,
And Councillor Buttle has already seconded it, and yeah.
I accept the good advice from our legal.
Third addition would be that Wirksworth Town Council are the town council in that area, and we should look at their views, and we could take their views on board as well. Also, civic society, again, take their views on. It's all the views of the residents of that area we should listen to.
Okay, but I don't think those don't constitute reasons for
as strong
refusal.
as the highways. The highway is rock solid, and if it comes to appeal, we'll win an appeal with the highways issue.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Lees.
Yeah, back again, Chair, sorry. Still confused on this highways job, because if we refuse this on highways ground, we're in effect rendering it useless for any future use whatsoever, because the next thing's going, highways are going to come back with, if it's permanent residency, they'll probably come back with the same statement. So, but it's still going to be, it could be the same outcome. So I'm still confused really on as if it was a permanent residency, we wouldn't be even here, would we? Because it wouldn't need a change of use. Is that right?
Well, it would, because it's not a change of use, but we have to develop planning because it's a historic area.
If you don't have a list of building consents.
Can I just it would need consent for the changes, but it is a dwelling, so it wouldn't need planning permission to be a dwelling. So therefore, highways wouldn't get a say.
It'd just need listed building consent.
Yeah.
Would it? Or under the S4, whatever it is?
I think it's just buildings, windows and doors, because it's in a conservation area. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. Yes, but well done.
I'm sorry, Chair. Can I just come back to this point about policy S1, because I think it is important. It may be a weak link, but that's very, very specific wording there about the need, sorry, I haven't got my glasses, to minimise the need for travel by promoting development in a location where there is access to a broad range of jobs, services and facilities, which are accessible by foot, cycle or public transport, with reduced reliance on the private car. This is probably the most significant location where I can think of in Derbyshire Dales where this applies. And I would like to see that in there as one of our reasons for refusal, please.
Chair, I think that's a reason for any
So there's we're sort of debating over what the motion should be, and I'm not sure that we should be doing that because we have already spent quite some time doing it. Councillor Hughes, can you without I don't want to keep going back and forwards over this. Are you sticking with the highways, or are you going to? Yeah, Councillor Selly is suggesting that you change it again, but
no, I would stick with the highways,
okay,
because the problem is that sustainable development policy would apply to any development, not only housing development. So that doesn't really make any difference.
So, Councillor Shelley, you could propose an amendment if you wanted to. Would you like to do that?
I'd love to, but I feel that I haven't got the weight of the room behind me.
Okay.
I agree with Roger. That sustainable development, I mean, it's
all right.
Perfectly placed.
In which case, then, yes, let's put it to the vote. I'd like to propose that, please. It
so
sounds like I have a seconder.
So I've got people talking over each other at the moment. Please, can you not do that? Councillor Shelley has proposed an amendment. Councillor Slack, do I take it that you're seconding that amendment? Can we go straight to a vote? Because unless anybody wants to speak on it. Okay, Councillor Dobbs.
Very quickly, I mean, as has been pointed out, if you use that, it's a reason for development of any kind, as has been clarified.
Okay, yeah, I see your point. Okay, so all those in favour of this amendment? 2. All those against? Abstentions? Okay, so the amendment is not carried. We're back to the main motion. Would anybody else like, some people have already spoken. I'm going to be strict here now. Would anybody who has not already spoken would like to speak? You have already spoken, but you as seconder, you have the right to sum up at the end.
I would like to point out that I did mention S1 in HC19 and S1 in my seconding of David, because I thought David was supporting using the S1, which would support Roger.
But you changed it back to just using the highways.
We need to just make sure that David and I are on the same page.
Okay, sorry, right. So do we have a seconder of the slightly altered motion that does not reference policy S1? We do, Councillor Bustle. Okay. Would anybody else like to speak? Okay, all those in favour of this motion? And all those against? Abstentions? Okay, so that motion is passed and the planning application is refused. Now I feel that we're probably going to have the same thing again with the next item. I'll leave it to Gina to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. So this is another application at 9 Green Hill. This is the neighbouring property, 9 Green Hill. This is slightly larger. It's a 3-bed dwelling rather than a 1-bed dwelling. And it also has some associated alterations proposed, as well as the use of a 3-bed holly lilac, which are just the replacement windows and doors and the replacement rainwater goods. And again, the recommendation that the office has made is to recommend on approval based on the balance that they've put forward. So it would be whether you agree with the recommendation put forward. Thank you.
Okay, so does anybody have a motion that they would like to propose on this? Oh, sorry, questions first. Do we have any questions? Although it is very similar to the last one. Nope. Okay. Councillor Slack, is it an actual question?
Yeah. This is a 3-bedroom house. Obviously, this will be for a larger family, obviously. So I don't really think it's a lot different, really, to the first one. But,
that's not a question.
It's not a question, no, sorry. But it's a 3-bedroom house. And it's to be desirable for.
Do you have a
larger
question,
family.
Councillor Slack?
No.
Do you have a question?
No, I don't. I have a question that. No, I don't have.
Okay, I'll assume you don't have a question.
No, we
Does
haven't. We've
anybody
only talked.
have? Would anybody like to propose a motion? Councillor Hughes.
Propose refusal on the grounds of highways again.
Okay, so the same as last time. Would anybody like to speak on this one, even though it's very similar to the last one? Oh, yeah, thanks. Councillor Slack seconding. I forgot to ask for somebody to second it. Would you like to speak, Councillor Slack?
I'm not used to it. Just to say that highways is very important, and they have stressed in their report that it is a very, very steep hill. It's narrow, it's no footpath, and to families to come on holiday, taking the road up would take more time, and luggage taken in and out every week, and then a local family who would be there wouldn't be taking up that much room. They'd probably park down in the town and walk down with their shopping and so forth, walk up with their shopping. So, yeah, it's better for a local family to take this out, and it's better for the community as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Okay, in that case, all those in favour of the motion to refuse the application? Okay, those against? And I'm going to abstain again. And abstentions? Okay. The motion passes. Okay, so that's that item. I think that's the last item. I declare. Oh, Councillor Dobbs.
Just quickly, an observation. I don't think the applicant is actually Mr. David Goodall. That's recorded. That was from the previous meeting. That was the applicant of the item that was taken before these two at that August meeting. So I think it is actually Mr. Nick Harden is the applicant and possibly the agent as well, but just for the record.
Okay. So in that case, I declare the meeting closed.